only 2%, 2 out of 100, 2% of the value of gold that is exported from Ghana comes back into the Ghanaian economy. 98% does not come back into the Ghanaian economy. 98% rest in banks in New York, Washington, and so on. Why would we not have a debt crisis? Why would we not be poor? The conditions in Africa today clearly suggest that if we do not unite, and if we do not unite under the banner of socialism, perhaps what happened in the past will be a walk in the flower garden. Why do I say so? Today, as we speak in this hall, Ghana is the 5th largest producer of gold in the world. And all of you know the value of gold. In fact, in the not too distant future, your currency was as strong as the quantity of gold you had to back it. And Ghana is a proud producer, is the 5th largest producer of gold in the world. In fact, the 2nd largest in the whole of Africa. How come that the Ghanaian people are so very poor? That's an important question to answer. Because in that answer, we shall find the solution to our problems and we shall understand the causes of our problems much more. Only recently, the former managing director of one of the largest gold mines in the world, Anglo Gold Ashanti, granted an interview to the Ghanaian media in which he said that Ghana has no interest, no shares in Anglo Gold Ashanti operating in Ghana. Our shares in Anglo Gold Ashanti today, 0%. 0%. We own the mines. The mine is being run by a multinational corporation, and our shares, 0%. How can you develop? How can you fight poverty? This is the crux of the matter. Comrades, the official estimate is that only 2%, 2 out of 100, 2% of the value of gold that is exported from Ghana comes back into the Ghanaian economy. 98% does not come back into the Ghanaian economy. 98% rest in banks in New York, Washington, and so on. Why would we not have a debt crisis? Why would we not be poor? And so on. Comrades, it gets worse. There's a phenomenon which has now been described as the race to the bottom. What is that phenomenon? These giant multinational corporations come and they go to South Africa. And they meet the South African authorities and say, look, we are ready to invest capital in Africa. But capital will go to the places where we have the most favorable conditions. So we want tax holidays. And then the South Africans say that, okay, we agree. We want your capital, and therefore we'll give you 2 years tax holiday. When they get the 2 years tax holiday, they put it in their back pocket, and they run to Guinea. And they tell the Guinean authorities, this is what the South Africans did. You have to do better than the South Africans so we can bring our investments to Guinea. Guinea then says, we give you 4 years tax holiday. They say, okay. And then they go to Mali. They repeat the same ritual and they get 6 years tax holiday and they come to Ghana. Of course, you know what the new colonial regime in Ghana will do. I don't have to say it. So we are racing to the bottom. And we are racing to the bottom because we are not united. If Africa was united, Africa would be negotiating as one strong force. Not 56 countries, not 54 countries, and not 58 countries. And that gives us an advantage. This is the common sense why African people ought to come together and act together and deal with the world as one strong united force. Comrades and friends, I come from Ghana. All the 16 regions of Ghana have favorable conditions for the cultivation of rice. All the 16 regions of Ghana. And yet, Ghana is one of the largest importers of rice. Ghana is crisscrossed by all kinds of rivers. We are bordered on the south by the Atlantic Ocean. And yet, Ghana is one of the largest importers of fish in the world. Ghana is a tropical country, has abundant rainfall and fertile lands. And yet, Ghana is the third largest importer of tomato paste from Germany. This is our tragedy. This is our tragedy. Comrades, I'm sure that all of us have followed the war in Ukraine. And I'm sure that all of us have heard the nonsense that is repeated every day about the war in Ukraine. And one of the most foolish things that our leaders repeat, they tell us in the face, is that, look, we are suffering as a result of the war in Ukraine. We are not going to get food to eat because of the war in Ukraine. How stupid can these leaders be? How stupid can they be? We can grow food all year round. And if we have the conditions to grow food all year round and Ukraine cannot, how did we become dependent on food production from Ukraine? Comrades, Africa today has 70% of the arable lands in the world. 70%, Africa alone. How did we become dependent on food supplies from Ukraine? This is the sad story of our history of oppression and exploitation. But most importantly, it is the sad story of our miseducation and misdirection. What are the first songs that our children learn to sing when they go to nursery school? I sang it. My grandchildren are singing the same song today. Something is wrong. And what is that song? London's burning, look yonder, fire, fire, no water. Our grandchildren are singing about London burning for God's sake. That is the miseducation. We are still singing about London burning. We are still composing songs about the elegance of Queen Elizabeth. That is a tragedy. That is a tragedy. Today, in my country, we are told that we are in a debt crisis. We are told that we are in a debt crisis. Our country has become completely bankrupt. We are told that we need 120%. 100 is all. But we need 120% of total national revenue to pay for 3 line items: debt repayment, debt servicing, and public sector emoluments. No country can survive under these conditions. But how did we get here? How did we get here? Is it just reckless borrowing? No. How did we get here? Next time when I come, I'll carry one book titled Africa Must Unite, a book which was authored by Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of the Republic of Ghana. And in that book, Nkrumah makes the point that Africa has 52% of the total resources of the world. How How come that the people who are 52% of the total resources of the world are so very poor? There must be an explanation. And the explanation, short code, is simply that we do not own these resources, even though these resources are embedded in our soil. And that these resources, when they're exploited, are not exploited for the benefit of our people. This paradigm of development ought to change. If the African people are to stand up proudly, if the African people are to be able to fight under development in all its expressions, if the African people are to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with their friends across the world and to build that new world without hunger, that new world which is fighting disease, that new world which is guided by the principles of democracy and mass participation in decision-making. So, if we are to do that, then we ought to change this paradigm of development, which takes everything from us and gives us nothing. Comrades and friends, we don't have enough time, and I want to end. But before I end, let me pay tribute to the very significant friendship between our peoples and the people of China. That friendship, which found expression in the personal bond between Kwame Nkrumah and Prime Minister Zhou Enlai of China. If we are to move forward as a people, whether we are Chinese or Ghanaians, it is important for us to take a few steps back into history and to rekindle that friendship which is based on a genuine aspiration to develop a new world, which is based, that friendship which is true, that friendship which is not exploitative, that friendship which recognizes that we are all part of a common humanity and will progress or falter together. There's a fact that nobody can ignore, and that fact is whether we are Chinese, Americans, Japanese, Koreans, or Africans, we live on the same planet. And if we destroy this planet, all of us will suffer the consequences of the destruction of our planet. We are having this conversation at a time when the possibility of a thermonuclear war is looming. We have been foolish enough. We, the people of this world, have been foolish enough to develop the capacity to destroy the world, not once, not twice, not thrice, but 10 times over. As if one destruction is not enough. We are so foolish that we are acting as if one destruction of this globe is not enough. We are building the capacity to destroy this globe 10 times over and more. What kind of people are we? Is it possible to build a world without a bomb? Should we build a world without a bomb? What kind of world should we build? And I'd like to submit that we need to build that world in which no child will go to bed on an empty stomach. That should be our commitment. Our commitment should be to build that world in which nobody is denied access to medical care. Our commitment should be to build that new world in which we are not competitors, in which we are all citizens on the globe and working for the realization of the full human potential of all human beings. That world is possible. That world must be built. That is our commitment. And I'd like to thank all of you for listening to me. And I'd like to thank you even more profusely for establishing this institution, which brings people together to discuss, to think, and to find a way forward in this mad world of crazy leaders, this mad world in which the forces of imperialism have become so reckless that they work for their own destruction. Thank you, my comrades. Thank you very much.